Donald Trump has just been elected the 47th President of the United States, and we already woke up to DMs about how to leave the US. In this video, we're going to be breaking down what happened, what these election results mean for expats, and if you're now considering leaving the US, how to get started. Oh, and by the way, even if you did vote for Trump, you should still consider moving abroad, living the lifestyle here that's so much better in many ways than in the US, and also diversifying your income, your location, your passports, and much, much more.
Welcome to Entrepreneur Expat. On this channel, we talk all about doing business in other countries, doing business online, living in other countries, and enjoying the expat lifestyle. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because especially if you're interested in Mexico right now, which many of you are after this election based on all the DMs that we've been getting, we've got real estate tours coming up. We've got a lot of cool stuff that we're going to be showing you in order to make your move to Mexico a whole lot easier. And speaking of moving to Mexico, we do have a free guide that you can download below that will help you get started with the basics. We've been saying it on this channel for a while. It's going to get harder for Americans to move to other countries. Requirements are getting more strict. And we have a feeling that regardless of how this election went, at least half the country was all going to try and get out all at the same time. So move quickly and download that Move to Mexico guide below.
So here are a few of the things that we'd like to make really clear before we dive into some of the meat of this video. Number one, no politician can really affect your life that much. You make your own life. You are your own sovereign being, whether you choose to stay living in the US, whether you want to live abroad, whether you want to move to a different state, whatever it is you do, you're in charge of your life. And I think Viktor Frankl said it best, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but the only thing that you're really in control of is this thing between your two ears, your brain, and really specifically your mind. You can really only control how you feel about a situation, what you make certain things and certain events mean, and what you do in response to those things. So at the end of the day, you're the person who is in charge of your life more than any politician. And I think it's really important to ground yourself in that and not get hysterical if your candidate won, if your candidate didn't win, if you don't like the political system in the US at all, and if you don't like either of the candidates, that's about how we feel. But it doesn't affect your life anywhere near as much as the choices that you can make.
Speaking of us not liking either of the candidates, a lot of expats felt that way. I think we had a commenter who put it perfectly, where he was like, well, a vote for Donald Trump is a vote for drama and chaos and all kinds of insanity that's going to come with that. And a vote for Kamala Harris is the Californication of the entire country. I don't know if y'all have been to California recently, but we have.
And I'm from there. It does not look good right now.
It doesn't look good. So we really were weighing our options, and we were like, oh my gosh, the United States is in a situation that no matter which way this goes, it's going to be completely chaotic, and both choices are pretty terrible.
Yep.
Now, we understand why people voted the way that they did. The problem that we have in the United States, which is what we've talked about before on this channel, is the fact that the entire system is broken, and that's why we keep ending up in these situations where we have to keep choosing the lesser of two evils. How else is the system broken? Because I think a lot of people think the president's just going to magically fix all this stuff regardless of who it is that you voted for, and newsflash, they're not.
Yeah, so for better or for worse, and this is different in some other countries, but the executive branch of the government does not really have that much power, not nearly as much as people actually think. What's much more important is the combination of the Congress and the court system and all these other things that comprise our government, not to mention those sort of pretty much lifelong people that are working in politics. Trump calls them the deep state. CNN might call them political servants. Whatever your name for them is, they're the people that are actually turning most of the wheels and running most of these systems between those guys and the Supreme Court justices and the people in Congress. The person who's actually at the top, quote unquote, and we know, as an example right now, you and I both know that Biden is not actually running the country. And you can interpret that on many different levels. I'll leave that open to interpretation. But there isn't one guy at the top that's just signing the orders for everything. And in this current administration, at least the last 12 months, I don't think he's really in charge of anything, but we won't go down too many rabbit holes about that. But there's a lot of other people who are actually in power, not to dive into any conspiracy theories or anything like that. But the president really does not control the national, or definitely not the global economic order. It's controlled by much, much larger powers.
When you're talking about congressional candidates and also the president, who's paying for their campaigns? That's an important thing to consider, because that's part of what's making the system so broken. So
in a lot of countries, you call lobbying corruption, right?
Yeah.
That's the name for it. Everybody else is looking at the U.S. being like, wait, so individuals can only give like a couple $1,000, but corporations can give hundreds of millions sometimes to a candidate or to a party? Like, that's weird.
Right, Mexicans are like, we already went through that. That's called corruption.
Yeah, but that's been ingrained in the U.S., I mean, almost since the beginning. And so corporations are buying all of the politicians. So they're the ones that are really running a lot of they're the ones turning a lot of the machines, at least the ones that work in favor of them.
And it's like we said, regardless of which way this election went, it was going to be very, very ugly either way, which is why it doesn't really matter who you voted for or who came out as president. Every American should be considering Plan Bs, Cs, Ds, Es, and all the way through the entire alphabet. We are far more interested in global citizenship because there's opportunity all over the world. There's opportunities that we're coming upon in Mexico that would have been impossible to get our hands on in the United States. And when it comes to the political situations in other countries, if you're living among multiple countries, you're not really super involved in the politics of any of them. And one of the things that I noticed being in Mexico, being overseas this election cycle, we were far less stressed. But the minute I logged on to Facebook and saw all my American friends, y'all were at each other's throats constantly. I was like, everybody needs to take a Xanax and calm down right now. But when you're living in other countries and you're living among multiple different countries, I don't want to say you float above all of those things because, laws in countries and things still affect you. Hello, immigration, which you're going to have to go through. You're just not as affected because you've diversified yourself a lot more and you have all these different perspectives from all over the world. So our idea is, instead of just sticking to one country, why don't you learn how to live among multiple countries, and then you take what's good about all of those countries and dump the rest.
Exactly. It's being able to position yourself with your income sources, with your passports, and really just with your mindset as well, as someone who can actually adapt to new cultures, learn new languages like we have. Well, at least I have. You've spoken Spanish pretty much all your life. But you're still doing a lot of adapting for sure. It wasn't that easy for you to come down here and learn the local customs and cultures and build community here and all that. But we did it. And now it's pretty much easy for us to, if we needed to in a year, 2 years, 5 years, pick up our stuff and go to another country, pack up Daisy and Mia in the car,
dog and the cat.
Yeah, in the car or wherever, and move somewhere else, because we developed that mindset, that adaptability, which is one of the important things that you need to work on, regardless of whether your candidate wins or doesn't win now or in another 4 years when we have another election.
So what happened? What happened is that Donald Trump won, and us personally, our personal opinion, not surprised one iota that Donald Trump won the election. We are not political experts by trade. We're probably more marketers and business people by trade. If we're looking at it just from a marketing standpoint, Trump had the more compelling story. Just from a pure marketing standpoint, we're not talking about ethics, morals, laws, any of that. Just from pure marketing standpoint.
He's not great with those laws, those pesky little laws. Oh,
we're just talking pure marketing standpoint, which all an election really is who marketed better anyway. He had the more compelling of the two marketing strategies. Let's just call it that.
That needs to be another video too. I think we're going to do another video where we break down some of Trump's rhetoric and how he talks about things and the way that he uses his language to influence people. Again, like him or hate him, you have to admit the guy's a very, very powerful marketer, and he always has been all of his life. That's what he does. What he's known for, right? His face everywhere, his name in gold at the top of big buildings in Vegas and and everywhere else. So we'll have to do a breakdown of that.
We'll do a breakdown of that, yeah. But neither of us found it that surprising that he won the election. We were not shocked. We are not gobsmacked. We're not like half of the Americans are like, how could this possibly happen? It wasn't rocket science on how it possibly happened. So that's basically what happened. You now have Donald Trump as the 47th president of the United States. Now, what does that mean for expats? Let's get into that.
Well, you mentioned a few things when we were talking about this earlier, and that maybe the dollar is going to get stronger in terms of the global economy. That could be good for expats. It could mean that we have more purchasing power when we go and we do live in other countries. Just as a quick update here, we were actually following the peso for some time, and
Mexican peso.
Yeah, the Mexican peso, and kind of surprisingly, I guess it hasn't really changed much at all, but I think that's probably because a lot of economists thought that, and speculators and people thought that Trump was very likely to win. So the peso is actually a little bit weaker, or no, a little bit stronger in comparison to the dollar compared to, let's say, yesterday, but by like a few fractions of a penny. I think it was at about 20.2 yesterday, and now it's at around 20.06. So it's less than it's about a 0.5% difference, almost unaffected, which is kind of interesting. But we have yet to see also like what's going to happen on his first day in the White House.
Is he going to make it to his first day in the White House?
Yeah, we've heard that there's a lot of things going on that are going to try to make that not happen.
Oh, we'll get into that momentarily. That's why everybody, regardless of who you voted for, needs to start figuring out how to get out, because the U.S. is in for a wild ride.
And another thing that Trump said is that he was going to end double taxation of expats, but there wasn't really any super clear policy. We did another video on this. We can link to it in terms of like what he actually said and what it means. But long story short, it was kind of a lot of political rhetoric, there's no specific policy here.
Who's a voting bloc nobody talks to? Expats, there's 9 million
Why
of
don't you
them.
say something to them, basically? So he said that, and we don't know if that just means that they're going to wipe out citizenship-based
Most likely
taxation
not.
entirely, very unlikely to happen, or if they're, let's say, going to give you some kind of tax credit if you go to France or if you go to Spain and they have some kind of better tax treaties with those countries. We really don't know. But you really should move abroad even if you voted for Trump, and we're going to tell you why.
So here, we're not trying to like be fear-mongering here or anything. As we do with all our videos, we try and be as nuanced as possible. And unfortunately, in the United States, nuance is something that's been missing from the political conversation for a long time. But in other countries, it's pretty normal to have more nuanced conversations about what is going on politically. And part of the reason why it's so difficult to be nuanced in the United States and why we keep ending up in these dystopian elections is because we are locked into a two-party system. The system itself is what's broken. So a lot of expats feel it doesn't matter who's president if the system is underneath it all is still a hot steak and mess, which is what is going on in the United States. Now, a lot of people voted for Trump thinking, oh, he's going to break that system. Maybe he'll shoot some flamethrowers into it or whatever, but we all know what's going to happen. In 2 years, then Congress is going to flip back a little bit more blue, then we'll be in a deadlock, then nothing will get done, then we'll have
then
another...
the government shuts down.
Then the government shuts down.
Then you can't go to the national park for a few days.
Then in 4 years, right,
Yeah.
everybody's pissed off at what happened the last 4 years, and then it'll swing a little bit more, but as long as we're stuck in this like two-party deadlock system, there's really not going to be any room for nuance in the United States. And that's part of what's causing a lot of issues. And by the way, if you're a Democrat, the exact same thing happens. Let's say Kamala would have come out as president. Well, the same damn thing would have happened, just in the reverse. So it's the system that is a complete disaster right now. And yeah, maybe Donald Trump will throw a couple of flamethrowers in there, but he's probably not going to be able to get very far in actually changing most of that, which brings us to the next point. And this is what you're concerned about.
Yeah, which is it's going to get really ugly really soon. Again, we're not trying to fearmonger here. We're not trying to just make clickbaity stuff and whatever. Even though we are marketers, like we really like to tell you our true opinions and what we're feeling. And what we're talking about on a day-to-day basis, as well as with our families, even with people here that are noticing kind of what's going on in the US and the patterns, and it doesn't look pretty. It's one thing to get elected president, and it's a totally different thing to see if Trump actually survives to Inauguration Day, and if they don't try to take him out again between now and then, or very, very shortly into his term in office. And if that happens, J.D. Vance is president, which I really don't know if that would be a great thing. And so,
and by taking out, we could mean like another assassination attempt. We mean they could put him in prison and use lawfare. We mean making his life a living hell so that he just drops out. There's so many things, which, by the way, Latin Americans, like Mexicans, are seeing this and they're like, wait a minute, that's what happens in our countries? What is going on over there? Like, we're calming that stuff down and you guys are just getting started over there.
Fall of an empire.
With all of that. So if that happens, if he's taken out in whatever way, shape, or form that takes place, then you're going to have his side revolting, and his side has the majority of them. And let's say, by the way, Kamala would have won last night. Well, his side would still be revolting, right? And probably not accepting the election results and all of that. So like it really did not matter which way this went. This was going to be really ugly either way. And part of the reason why this is so ugly is because half the country can't stand the other country, and we're still in a deadlock over that in the United States. I mean, what was it, 47 to 50? It's like...
It was closer than that. It was like 47.5
and they're
to
not
51, and then the other...
And they're not done counting yet. So we're still basically at 50-50, and everybody at each other's throats, and nothing getting done.
Not only is there no nuance, but everybody that are the loud voices are really on one extreme or the other. So it's very polarizing, so that you have to say, hey, I'm a Trump fan or I'm a Kamala fan. And there's no room for, hey, why don't we look at the actual issues and like figure out what people, it's all about ideology. Oh, you like abortion? Great. You're with Kamala. You don't like abortion? All right, you're a Trump supporter. Like, none of it really makes any sense.
Right.
And there's a lot of these ideological issues that are driving it.
And then you have both sides saying, oh, we're against authoritarianism. And I'm like, both of these sides have shown that they're actually quite authoritarian, just in different ways.
Yeah, and the irony is that one of the biggest topics, for example, of importance for people supporting Kamala was that they wanted to make sure that they upheld the system of democracy. Yet Kamala was planted there without a single vote, without any primary, nothing. Just, okay, you're going to go against Trump with 5 months to go. That doesn't seem very democratic.
And there wouldn't have been a primary either way.
Right.
No one was, and there were people... who wanted to primary Joe Biden and the Democrats, and what did they do to them? They did lawfare against them, and then what ends up happening? Kennedy ends up going on Trump's side. So as we're showing you, it's a dumpster fire in the United States, and it doesn't matter who won this election. This dumpster fire is not over. In fact, it's just going to continue. And speaking of what's going on outside of the United States, regardless of what went on with U.S. elections, the rest of the world is still moving into a more multipolar world. Now, one of our business consulting clients said something really interesting yesterday, which I want to share with you guys, which she didn't realize how many other countries are actually paying attention to what goes on in the United States. And she goes, I'm sorry, like Americans just feel like they're like the center of the universe and they don't realize that there's all this other stuff going on in the world. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Americans think they're the center of the universe. They have no idea what's going on in other countries. They have no idea how interconnected all the countries actually are.
And they think that America is the best no matter what. Like somebody on PBD's podcast was talking about how you really don't know how lucky you are to be here in America. We have running water, we have plumbing, you can make money from here, we have internet. I'm like
you can't do that in other places?
I mean, we have AC, we have internet, we have water, we have backup power, we have backup water, we have...
No one's dying on the streets.
We have plumbing, we have garbage service, actually works better here than in the US, a lot of those things, I mean...
So the problem is that Trump being president, for those of you who voted for Trump, he's not going to stop any of this dumpster fire chaos. The dumpster fire chaos is going to continue, even if you believe that he's going to try and stop the dumpster fire chaos. If we look at history, if we look at patterns, and we hope we're wrong about this because this would be terrible for a country, they're going to try and stop him. no matter what. And then we're just in whatever way that they are going to try and do that. And the country will devolve into utter chaos if that happens. So doesn't matter which way this election went. It's a very weird time to be American and be in the United States. We're treading on some thin ice in the United States in a lot of different ways. And other countries outside of the United States have noticed that. And they're like, hey, we got to figure out how to make money not so much relying on the United States. Or we have to figure out how to get together and not rely so much on the US dollar. All of these things are happening regardless of who is president of the United States, because we're moving into a more multipolar world. And that is something that a lot of Americans do not realize. Again, because Americans tend to think they're the center of the universe.
So if you're sick of all of this and you're ready to move abroad, number one, don't forget to download that Moving to Mexico guide. We're going to talk about exactly how to do that, and we're also going to be sending you videos every single week about the latest in terms of immigration, whether it's to Mexico or different countries, how to leave the U.S., what to do.
We've got real estate tours.
We've got guides,
up.
tours, people that we're introducing you in different cities around the country here. But here's a really simple framework for you to just get started with so that you have something to take away from this video, which is, number one, figure out how you're making money. I think we also need to link that.
Yeah, make money from anywhere
guide
yeah.
That'll show you how to build a location-independent income. But you want to make sure that you're not reliant on a job, especially a job that requires you to be somewhere in person, because the whole play here is to be able to make dollars and spend pesos. For example, if you're in Mexico like we are, if you're having to compete with locals in the local economy, number one, you're not going to be able to do that at all because they won't let you into the country unless you can prove an outside income. And number two, you're not going to have the lifestyle that you're accustomed to down here, and you're going to be working your ass off, and that kind of defeats the purpose of the whole geo arbitrage thing. So figure out how you're going to make money online. Sure, there are some sales roles that still let you work from outside of the US. There are very, very few tech roles that we've seen now that let you actually work remotely, truly from anywhere. They'll say remote, but it means that you have to be in your state or in your country, and that does not work out very well for trying to move abroad. So ideally, you want to find a remote income where you have your own business, you can write your own rules, you can write your own checks.
And you get more tax breaks.
And you get much more tax breaks. Like, we save $15,000 to $20,000 a year each, easy, in taxes over what we would pay in the US because we're living abroad. So
and have businesses.
And have businesses, yeah. Exactly.
The next thing is just pick a country. We have other videos on how people make the decisions to pick those countries. We started off in Mexico because it's a pretty easy transition getting into Mexico. It's one of the reasons why people pick Mexico. We're now learning there's a ton of business opportunity here in Mexico that we're starting to learn about and get more involved in. So that obviously is really important to us and determines our decision of where we're going to be and where we want to go. But for other people, it could be a lifestyle decision. Some people make the decision based on taxes, right? Like they'd rather be somewhere where it's tax friendly, and others don't care about that. So it's really up to you. The point is just start picking some countries, and from there, book the damn plane ticket and go. Because it's one thing to say, I'm leaving. It's another thing to book the plane ticket, go over there and get your boots on the ground and see what's actually going on. And that's where most people stop.
Yeah, and the only thing after that is, if you've picked a country, you've decided where you want to go, you've got a remote income set up, well, figure out the immigration process. And if you're looking to move to Mexico or anywhere else, you may want to get on that now. Definitely download our guide below. And once you download that guide, you'll also get an email from us. You can just respond to that email and let us know if you are interested in actually doing the immigration process and, let's say, getting your residency in Mexico or another country, because we have a great network of lawyers and immigration people and consultants that can help you do that. We're actually putting together a package especially for this post-election season, where we're going to give you all the support and resources to do that, including helping sort out all of your travel and lodging and attorneys and consulate and everything else you need, so that you can basically just show up with a stack of papers and your passport, and you will know that you are almost guaranteed to get approved for that visa if you have all of your ducks in a row and all of your paperwork in check, which we're also going to help you do. So download that Moving to Mexico guide below. Let us know by email or in the comments if you're also interested in moving here and what your take is so far on the election and the
We don't
general
care.
state of the U.S.
We literally don't care who you voted for or which way. We're independents. We voted with our feet and our dollars. We left. We're going to live among multiple different countries because it's just a lot more peaceful that way. But let us know in the comments, and we literally don't care how you feel about it. So have at it. Have fun. Just be respectful of one another.
Awesome. Well, that was another video, another episode from Entrepreneur Expat. Make sure to like this video. It helps us out a lot with our mission of reaching 1 million entrepreneur expats and aspiring expats. And don't forget to download those guides. They're going to help you out a lot. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.